I need you in my bed, feeding my baby. Mountain Man told the fat girl. It saved 3 lives. Copper Falls, Montana Territory, 1887. The kind of town where dust and cruelty seem to hang in the air thicker than smoke. Jacob Thornton stood in the middle of the street, a giant of a man swallowed by helplessness. 6'7", shoulders like a barn door, beard black as coal and eyes red from 3 nights without sleep. In his arms, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, lay his whole world, a 3-month-old baby girl named Emma. Her tiny lips were dry, her cry no more than a thin, broken whimper. "She needs a wet nurse, Jacob." Dr. Harrison's words echoed in his skull. "Your daughter is starving. Goat's milk, cow's milk, none of it is enough. Without a woman's milk, she will not live out the week." Anna, his wife, had bled to death the day Emma was born. Since then, Jacob had ridden miles across mountains and prairie begging for help. Every respectable woman in 3 counties had given him the same frightened look. Living alone with a widowed mountain man in a cabin in the high country? No, impossible. Now he was down to his last hope and his last dollars. Emma's breathing grew shallower in his arms. Her tiny fist twitched once, then went limp. Panic clawed at his throat. Laughter erupted near the saloon. Male voices, loud, ugly. Jacob turned. A makeshift platform had been set up outside, a crude stage for something even crueler. On it stood a young woman, hands tied in front of her, cheeks burning with shame. She was big, soft, heavy, at least 240 pounds, dressed in a faded blue dress that strained at the seams. Her long brown hair fell in tangled waves down her back, and her green eyes were wide with terror. $5 for the fat cow," a man jeered, holding her by the elbow. "She's full of milk, boys. Had a bastard baby 2 weeks ago. Kid died, but the milk didn't." The crowd roared with laughter. Beside the girl, a thin, sharp-faced man grinned greedily. "She shamed our good family name. She pays us back with what she's got. Who bids?" The girl stared at the ground, shoulders shaking. Tears slid down her flushed cheeks and dripped onto the warped wooden boards. Jacob's stomach twisted. She wasn't a cow. She was a woman who had just buried her child. $3, someone shouted. $3.50, another man called. "I'll work her hard enough the fat melts right off." Emma let out a weak, strangled cry, then fell silent again. Jacob felt her ribs through the blanket. Time was gone. Before he even knew he was speaking, his voice rolled over the square like thunder. $50. The crowd went dead quiet. Heads snapped toward him. The sharp-faced man's eyes gleamed. "Sold!" Jacob strode to the platform, towering over everyone. Up close, he could see the girl's lips trembling, the fresh milk stains on the front of her dress. Grief and hunger lived in her eyes. He untied her wrists with rough gentleness, then looked straight into her face. "My name is Jacob Thornton," he said, voice low and raw. "I need you to come with me." She swallowed. Are you going to hurt me?" He shifted Emma in his arms, pulling back the blanket so the girl could see the tiny, wasting child. "No," he said, "I need you in my bed, feeding my baby. If you don't, she's going to die." For a long heartbeat, no one in that filthy street moved. If you're still listening right now, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you hearing this story from? I'd love to know who's out there with Jacob and Clara in Copper Falls tonight. Her name was Clara Bennett. Jacob didn't ask it at first. He was too focused on keeping Emma alive, but he heard it whispered behind him as he led her away from the saloon. Bennett girl. Fat one with the bastard baby. Her family dumped her like trash. Clara flinched at every word, like each syllable was a stone thrown at her back. She kept her arms wrapped around herself, shoulders hunched, as though trying to take up less space in a world that insisted she was already too much. Jacob lifted her onto his massive horse. She weighed nothing to him. Emma whimpered against his chest, and Clara's eyes filled immediately with a deep, instinctive sorrow. "She's so thin," Clara whispered, "so weak." "She's dying," Jacob said, mounting behind her, "unless you help." The 3-hour ride up the mountain was silent, broken only by Clara's soft, shushing sounds whenever Emma whimpered. It struck Jacob. She had no fear of the baby, only heartbreak, as if holding another woman's starving child reminded her of something too painful to name. The cabin appeared as dusk settled. Solid logs, smoke from the chimney, a small barn, stacks of wood Jacob had chopped by hand. He helped Clara down. She held Emma awkwardly at first, then naturally, then protectively. Inside, Clara's eyes widened, surprised the place wasn't a filthy bachelor's den. The cabin was clean, sturdy, organized. A man who had once lived with a woman had built this life. Jacob gestured to the small room beside the main one. "This will be your space. There's a bed, but for now, she needs to eat." Clara sat in the rocking chair Jacob had built years ago. Her hands shook as she unbuttoned her dress, but when Emma latched on, Clara gasped, not from pain, but from release, grief, purpose, a mother's instinct abruptly revived after loss. Jacob turned away to give privacy, but he heard Clara crying softly, broken, relieved, and grieving all at once. When he finally dared look again, Emma was nursing vigorously, her tiny hand curled against Clara's breast. Clara's face shone wet with tears. "She's hungry," Clara whispered, "so hungry." Jacob swallowed the knot in his throat. "You're saving her." Clara looked down at Emma with a fragile, aching tenderness. "I'd do anything for her." When Emma finished and fell asleep against Clara's chest, Jacob took the baby gently, more gently than anyone would expect of a man his size, and laid her in the cradle Anna had sewn. He turned to Clara. "You'll stay here until Emma no longer needs milk," he said stiffly, building a wall of professionalism between them. "I'll pay you when it's done. You'll sleep in that room with her. I'll sleep in mine. You're not here for me. You're here for her." Clara nodded, though her chin trembled. "I understand." But she didn't understand. Not really. Not until later. That first night, Clara woke every 2 hours to Emma's cries. Jacob rose too, pacing outside the door, unable to sleep, listening to every sound. She fed Emma, burped her, rocked her. At dawn, Clara found Jacob chopping wood behind the cabin, shirtless despite the cold. His back was a map of scars. His arm swung the axe with mechanical rage, breath fogging the morning air. Clara approached timidly, clutching her shawl. "Mr. Thornton." He didn't stop swinging. "Jacob," he corrected curtly. "Jacob, she ate well last night. She's stronger already." His shoulders shuddered at that. After a moment, he lowered the axe and turned. "Thank you," he said. 2 quiet words, heavy as stone. Clara looked startled by the sincerity. "I'm just doing what any mother would—" She broke off, hand flying to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. Jacob realized then she wasn't speaking carelessly. She meant any mother. She was a mother, or had been. "Clara," Jacob said gruffly, "did something happen to your baby?" Her entire face crumpled. She She didn't survive, my little Rose. She only lived 2 hours." Jacob's chest tightened. He had known grief, but her voice, thin, cracked, bleeding, was the sound of a wound that never healed. Clara wiped her face quickly. "I shouldn't cry. I'm supposed to work. I'm sorry." Jacob stepped closer, careful, like approaching a wounded animal. "Don't apologize for loving your child." No one had ever said that to her. She broke again, but she wiped her tears, straightened her back, and went to check on Emma, because Clara did not collapse under grief. She turned grief into care. Jacob watched her pass him, her figure soft, tired, but somehow unbreakable. And for the first time since Anna's death, something in him stirred. Not desire, not yet. Something more dangerous, more promising. Respect, and the faint, fragile seed of something else. Hope. The third week brought the first real thaw in the ice between them. It didn't happen in a moment of drama, but in something small, quiet, human. Clara woke before sunrise, as she did every day, to Emma's soft whimpering. She fed her, rocked her, then padded barefoot into the kitchen to start oatmeal on the stove. The fire crackled, warming the chilly morning air. Jacob came in from the porch, covered in frost, having checked the traps before dawn. His beard sparkled with ice crystals, his hair wild and wind-tossed. "You're up early," he muttered. "You never sleep," she replied gently. He didn't deny it. Emma gurgled softly from the cradle by the hearth. Clara touched her cheek, smiling. "She's gaining weight," Clara said. "Feel her arm." Jacob hesitated, then reached down with a hand that dwarfed Emma's tiny forearm. His thumb brushed the soft new flesh, and something inside him cracked open. Emma wasn't weightless anymore. She wasn't fading. She was present, solid, alive. "God," he whispered, "you did this." "No," Clara corrected softly. "We did this." It was the first time she had included herself in his world, and the first time he didn't shove her out of it. That afternoon, Jacob took Clara on a small walk behind the cabin while Emma napped. Snow melted in patches, revealing earth ready for spring. Clara's breath misted in the air as she took in the towering pines and the river glinting in the distance. "It's beautiful up here," she whispered. Jacob shrugged. "It's quiet." "I like quiet." She paused. "Quiet doesn't judge." He stopped walking, turned to face her fully. "Did they judge you? For Rose?" Her shoulders tensed. "For everything, my size, my body, getting pregnant unmarried. They said I was a disgrace. My own father said, he said God had punished me." Jacob swore under his breath, an ugly, guttural sound. "There's no punishment in losing a child, only pain." Clara blinked, absorbing the truth of that. He meant it. He understood. "How did you lose Anna?" she asked tentatively. Jacob's jaw clenched, but he didn't turn away. "She bled too fast, too much. The doctor didn't make it in time." His voice cracked. "I held her when she went." Clara's heart twisted. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jacob nodded once sharply, as if the gesture were the only thing holding him together. "You remind me of her," he said quietly. Clara froze. "Because I'm fat?" she asked, bracing for hurt. But Jacob shook his head immediately. "Because you're warm, gentle, because a baby in your arms looks right." Clara's breath hitched. "I thought," she swallowed, "I thought you didn't even like me." Jacob exhaled hard through his nose, frustrated with himself. "I didn't want to care again, not about anyone." "Because caring hurts?" He nodded. "Because losing hurts more." A moment of silence settled, a soft, tender thing neither of them dared touch. Clara was the first to break it. "You won't lose me," she said gently. "I'm not leaving Emma." Jacob's expression shifted, complex, conflicted, almost pained. "Emma," he echoed. "Right." He walked ahead, ending the conversation. But Clara had seen something in his eyes, something vulnerable, something lonely. That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder cracking across the mountains, wind slamming into the cabin's thick log walls. Emma cried at the noise, fretful and frightened. Clara rocked her, humming a low, steady tune. Jacob watched from the doorway, arms crossed, but eyes soft. "She likes your voice," he murmured. "She misses feeling safe," Clara said. "Babies can feel when a home is broken." Jacob's eyes flickered. "Is this home broken?" "Not anymore," Clara whispered. "Not for her." A log snapped loudly in the fireplace. Emma startled and wailed. Before Clara could stand, Jacob stepped forward instinctively, hands reaching out as if to take his daughter. He froze halfway, as if surprised at himself. "Go on," Clara urged gently. "She knows you." Jacob hesitated, then scooped Emma into his arms. His movements were stiff at first, but Emma burrowed against his chest, tiny fingers gripping his shirt. Her cries quieted. "She remembers your heartbeat," Clara said softly. "It's the first sound a baby knows. Even after birth, it comforts them." Jacob stared down at Emma, shaking. "Anna used to say that." "Anna was right." Clara reached up slowly, resting her hand over Jacob's, steadying, supportive, not demanding anything. He didn't pull away. They stood like that, two broken souls and one saved child, as the storm raged outside. When the thunder softened and Emma fell asleep, Jacob exhaled shakily. "Thank you," he whispered, "for staying, for giving her what I couldn't." Clara's eyes glistened. "You gave her life. I'm just helping her live it." The storm finally faded, but something new had begun. Quiet, steady, undeniable. Tenderness, not love yet, not fully, but something growing in the dark, like the first blade of grass pushing through thawing snow. Clara felt it. Jacob felt it. And Emma, warm in their joined arms, seemed to sense it too. Spring settled over the mountains slowly, like a shy visitor testing the air before stepping inside. Each day brought small promises. Icicles shrinking on the eaves, green shoots pushing through thawing earth, the river running faster and louder with melted snow. Inside the cabin, another kind of thaw was happening. Quiet, steady, almost tender. Clara fit into the rhythm of the home in a way Jacob never expected. She didn't take up space. She filled it, softened it, warmed it. Her presence changed the energy of the cabin like a slow-burning fire, bringing life back to frozen bones. Every morning began the same way. Clara nursed Emma as sunlight crept across the wooden floor. When the baby finally drifted back to sleep, Clara stepped into the kitchen, cheeks pink from the warmth of the fire, dress wrinkled from a night of rocking and feeding. Jacob always pretended he didn't watch her. He tried to focus on chopping wood or fixing tools. But his eyes followed her, quietly, involuntarily, as she moved through the home. He noticed the way she hummed while mixing dough, the way she tucked loose strands of hair behind her ear, the way she whispered to Emma even when the baby was already asleep. These were small things, gentle, ordinary things. But to a man who had lived with grief as his only company, they felt extraordinary. One morning, he came in from hauling water and smelled something he hadn't tasted in years. "Is that bread?" he asked slowly. Clara nodded. shy pride warming her cheeks. "I found flour in the pantry, a little sugar too. Thought I'd try." Jacob blinked. "Anna used to—" He cut himself off, swallowing hard. Clara lowered her eyes. "I didn't mean to step on memories." "You didn't." His voice was rough but sincere. "It's good. It's good to have the smell of bread again." Clara smiled, small, hesitant, like a flower opening despite fear. Later that week, she cleaned the cabin from top to bottom. Jacob walked in to find curtains fluttering in the open windows, the scent of pine and soap swirling through the rooms, and Clara on her knees scrubbing the floor. "You don't have to do that," he said, startled. She looked up, loose hair falling into her face. "I like taking care of places that take care of me." Jacob stared at her for a long moment. "Has any place ever taken care of you?" Clara froze. Something in her eyes broke open. Old pain, deep and raw. "No," she whispered, "not until now." He didn't know what to say to that, so he picked up a bucket and helped her scrub the rest of the floors, both working in gentle silence. That evening, as Clara rocked Emma to sleep, Jacob sat nearby carving a small wooden bird. Clara watched his hands, large, calloused, precise. "You're good with your hands," she said softly. He almost choked on air. Clara blushed immediately. I meant carving. I mean, your carving is beautiful." Jacob cleared his throat, ears burning under his beard. "Thank you." He handed her the little bird. Clara cradled it in her palm like something precious. "Did you make things like this for Anna?" "Sometimes." Jacob's voice softened. "She liked things that felt alive, said carved animals were less lonely." Clara ran her fingertip along the bird's wing. "This one feels like hope." Jacob looked at her then, really looked at her, and something shifted. Not a flash of desire, not a reckless impulse, but an ache, quiet and earnest, right behind his ribs. A few nights later, he found Clara outside by the woodpile, struggling to lift an axe. "What are you doing?" he demanded, rushing over. She jumped. "The woodpile was getting low. I thought I'd try." "You'll hurt yourself." "I won't know unless I learn." He took a breath, swallowed the instinct to order her inside, and forced himself to step back. "Show me," he said. She raised the axe. It wobbled. She lowered it again, cheeks flushing. "This is silly," she muttered. "It's not." He walked behind her, one hand on hers, the other steadying the handle. His chest brushed her back, accidental at first, then deliberate as he aligned her stance. Clara froze. Her breath caught. Jacob felt the moment spark between them, the awareness, the heat, the possibility. He stepped back quickly, heart pounding. "Use your legs," he said gruffly, "not your arms." She tried again. The axe sank into the log, not deeply, but enough to split the wood. Clara's face lit with delight, and Jacob found himself smiling too, his first real smile in months. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected. That became a pattern. Clara wanting to learn, Jacob teaching her. He taught her to chop wood, to start a fire from nothing, to carry water from the stream without spilling a drop. She taught him things too, gentler things he didn't realize he'd forgotten. How to laugh at something small, how to listen instead of brood, how to let someone else into silence without feeling crowded. One afternoon, Clara was tending the chickens when she suddenly sucked in a breath. "Jacob, look!" He rushed over, thinking she was hurt, but she was kneeling beside their plumpest hen, holding an egg in her palm. "First of the season," she said proudly. "A single egg," Jacob said, confused. But Clara didn't hear the sarcasm. She only saw the miracle of it. Life keeps happening up here," she whispered, "even after loss." Jacob looked at her then, not the way he had when she first arrived, desperate and hollow and transactional, but with something warm blooming in his chest. He realized Clara didn't just nurse his daughter, she nursed the cabin, nursed the silence, nursed something inside him he thought had died with Anna. She made the cold places warm again, and every night after Emma fell asleep, Jacob found himself lingering in the doorway of the nursery, watching the two of them together. Clara's full, soft body curled around Emma's tiny one, the rocking chair creaking gently, her song low and sweet. One night, Clara looked up and caught him watching. "What is it?" she asked softly. Jacob opened his mouth, then closed it, then tried again. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Any of this." Clara's expression softened. "You don't have to know everything, Jacob," she whispered. "You just have to feel it." Her words hung in the warm air between them, a truth neither dared touch yet, but both were moving toward. Summer arrived in the mountains the way a flame catches dry grass, suddenly, fiercely, unapologetically. Wildflowers burst open along the trail. The river swelled with melted snow. The air smelled of pine resin and sun-warmed earth. But inside the cabin, something else was stirring, something Jacob didn't understand, something Clara could no longer hide. It began with whispers, voices from town drifting up the ridge through travelers and traders, rumors at first, snippets of conversation carried by men buying furs or supplies from Jacob. "Did you hear? The Bennetts are stirring up trouble again. Says their daughter was kidnapped by a mountain man. Silas Bennett is telling everyone he wants his property back." Property. The word made Jacob's jaw clench so hard his teeth ached. He didn't tell Clara at first. He didn't want to burden her, not when she was smiling more often, eating more, moving with a steadiness that came from feeling safe. But secrets have weight, and weight eventually forces itself into the light. It happened on a hot afternoon as Clara washed diapers in the stream, humming one of Emma's favorite tunes. Jacob came down the path carrying a sack of flour and salt from town, his face shadowed. Clara's smile faded instantly. "What happened?" Jacob set down the sack. "We need to talk." Her hand stilled in the water. "About what?" He hesitated just long enough to scare her. "About your family." Clara inhaled sharply. The humming stopped. The world seemed to stop with it. "What about them?" "They're spreading word you were taken against your will, that I stole you." Clara's eyes filled with panic, but not because of the accusation. "Jacob, they'll come. They'll come here. They won't leave me alone." She shook her head fiercely. "You don't know what they're capable of." "I know enough," Jacob said quietly. "But I need to hear the rest. From you." Clara dropped onto a flat rock by the stream. She wrapped her arms around herself as though bracing against a storm. "You know they sold me," she whispered, "but you don't know why." Jacob lowered himself beside her. "Then tell me." Clara stared at the water, tears gathering. "I was 16 when Silas Bennett married my mother," she began. "He didn't want another mouth to feed, especially not a fat girl who couldn't work in the fields without fainting in the heat. He blamed me for everything, every debt, every drought, every failure." Jacob's fists curled. "When I got pregnant, he called me a sinner, a disgrace. My mother told me if the baby died, maybe I'd learn God's punishment. And when she did die," Clara's voice broke, "they said God had taken care of the mistake." Jacob placed a steady hand on her back, a silent promise. I'm here. Keep going. 2 days after I buried my daughter, they dragged me into town and tried to sell me to pay their debts. I thought no one would buy me. I hoped no one would. But then they said something that made the men laugh. She swallowed hard. They said I still had milk. Jacob closed his eyes, grief crushing him. So when they sold me, when you bought me, I thought the same thing would happen here, that you'd use me until my milk ran out and send me back. I would never— I know that now, Clara whispered, but for months I didn't. She wiped her eyes. I'm not afraid of them coming to take me. I'm afraid of what might happen to Emma if they try. Jacob's voice went low and fierce. No one will lay a hand on Emma or you. Clara shook her head. You can't fight them all. I've fought worse. That's what scares me, she said, her voice breaking. I don't want you to die because of me. He turned to face her fully. Clara, listen to me. You didn't bring danger into my life. You brought life into my life. His hand cupped her cheek gently. But if your family comes here, if Silas tries to drag you back, if anyone threatens Emma, I need to know what you want. Do you want to stay? Clara didn't even hesitate. Yes, she breathed, more than anything. Then you're mine to protect, Jacob said, not because I bought you, but because you chose to stay. Before Clara could answer, the air shifted. A faint sound, distant, metallic, echoed through the trees, hoofbeats, many of them. Clara's face drained of color. Jacob! He stood in one smooth motion. Get Emma. Go inside. Clara ran up the hill toward the cabin, her skirts gathered in trembling fists. Jacob followed with long strides, his eyes scanning the ridge. He saw them emerge from the tree line like a dark stain spreading across clean wood. 6 riders, armed, mean-eyed, and in front, face twisted with triumph, Silas Bennett. He pulled up his horse just yards from the porch. Come out, mountain man, Silas shouted. We're here for our property. Jacob stepped outside, rifle cradled in his arms but pointed at the ground. For now. She's not your property, Jacob said evenly. She never was. Silas spit in the dirt. She owes me money. She owes me obedience. And you owe me $50 for stealing her. Clara appeared in the doorway behind Jacob, Emma in her arms. Silas pointed. There she is, the cow and her bastard milk. Jacob's voice was calm, but deadly. Mind your tongue. Silas laughed. What are you going to do, mountain man? Shoot us all? If I have to. Silas grinned. You won't, because the law's on my side. I have papers from the sheriff saying she was sold under contract. That means she's mine until the debt's paid. Clara pressed a hand to her mouth, choking on fear. They forged it, she whispered. I never signed anything. You didn't need to, Silas sneered. Your ma did. Jacob tightened his grip on the rifle. You'll leave this mountain today, one way or another. Silas's smile vanished. Men! The riders dismounted, guns drawn, steps heavy on the ground. Jacob took one step forward, blocking the door, his body a shield. Clara, he murmured without looking back. Go to the back room. If anything happens, run to the river and follow it north. Clara didn't move. I'm not leaving you. Jacob's voice cracked. I need you to protect Emma. Her breath hitched, but she stepped back into the shadows. Outside, 6 rifles lifted. 1 man against 6. A future at stake. A love he'd only just allowed himself to feel. Jacob exhaled once, slow. This is your last chance, he warned. Silas spat. Take him. The forest held its breath. Not a single bird called, not a pine needle stirred. Even the river below the ridge seemed to still, knowing that what was about to happen would decide the fate of 3 lives. Jacob Thornton squared his shoulders in front of the cabin door, blocking the entrance entirely. He didn't shout. He didn't posture. He just stood there, solid as bedrock, rifle resting in his hands like it belonged to him. And it did. 6 men approached in a loose half-circle, their boots crunching on pine cones, their rifles raised. Silas Bennett hung back near his horse, smirking like a man who believed he had already won. "Step aside, mountain man," one of the riders growled. "There's no need for blood." "That depends on who draws first," Jacob said quietly. "My family is behind me. If you take one more step, you're saying you're willing to shoot through me to get to them. And if that's what you're choosing—" His eyes hardened, turning to winter stone. "Then I won't hesitate." The men shifted uneasily. They'd expected a brute, someone all muscle and no thought. But Jacob spoke with the calm resolve of a man who had nothing left to lose except everything that mattered. Silas barked, "He's bluffing. He won't risk his child." Jacob didn't look back, but Clara, hidden just behind the door, felt the words hit her like a hammer. His child, their child in all but blood. Her arms tightened protectively around Emma. One of Silas's hired men sneered, "We'll take the woman, the baby too if she fusses." That did it. Jacob raised his rifle, not wildly, not out of fear, but with smooth, practiced certainty. "Last warning." Silas's eyes went feral. "Fire!" The clearing exploded. Gunshots cracked through the air. Clara screamed. Emma wailed. Bark splintered from a tree trunk near the porch, but Jacob didn't fall. He moved, not with the frantic speed of panic, but with the controlled force of a man who'd hunted grizzlies and survived blizzards that killed other men. His first shot dropped the closest rider, hitting his shoulder and spinning him to the ground. His second shattered the rifle of another man before he could aim again. The other scrambled, finding cover behind trees, returning fire. Bullets ricocheted off the porch railing. The cabin walls shuddered. Clara clutched Emma to her chest, crouching low, praying. "Jacob," she cried, "come inside." "Not while they're standing," Jacob shouted back. "I won't let them near you." Silas shrieked from behind a pine trunk, "Get him! He ain't but one man." But one man was all it took. Jacob dropped to one knee, firing with deadly precision. He grazed a thigh, hit another man's gun hand, forced 2 riders into the dirt, bleeding. Fear began to twist their faces. They hadn't expected a fight. Certainly not a mountain man fighting like a soldier, a protector, a father. Silas cursed, realizing his hired men were faltering. He aimed his pistol at the cabin door, at Clara, at the baby. Jacob saw the movement in the corner of his eye. He reacted without thinking, without breathing. He stepped directly between the door and Silas, drawing the fire. The gunshot cracked like thunder. Jacob staggered. Clara screamed, a raw sound that tore from her soul. "Jacob!" But Jacob didn't fall. The bullet had grazed his ribs, slicing fabric and skin. Blood welled, but he stayed on his feet, holding the line. Silas stared at him, horrified. "Why won't you go down?" Jacob's voice was quiet, shaking with pain and fury. "Because behind me is the woman I love, and the child who saved me." Silas's face twisted. "Then you'll die for nothing." Jacob fired. The bullet hit Silas's pistol, sending it flying. The force knocked Silas backward onto the ground. Silence rippled out from the trees as the last echoes faded. The remaining men stared at Jacob, bleeding, breathing hard but unbroken. One by one they dropped their weapons. "We didn't sign up for this," one muttered. "He's not a man, he's a damn bear." "Get off my mountain," Jacob said, voice low and deadly. "And if any of you ever come near my family again, you won't walk back down." They fled, dragging Silas with them, leaving their guns behind in their haste. Only when the last hoofbeat faded did Jacob turn. His knees buckled. Clara was there before he hit the ground, Emma still in her arms, sobbing his name, pressing her forehead to his, her tears mixing with blood on his cheek. "Jacob, Jacob, look at me, stay with me." His eyes opened slowly, locking onto hers. "You're safe," he rasped. "Both of you. That's all that matters." Clara kissed him fiercely. "Don't you dare leave us." Jacob managed a faint, pained smile. "I'm not going anywhere." She held him, shaking, as the forest slowly remembered to breathe again. Snow began to fall just as Clara managed to drag Jacob inside, flurries drifting through the doorway like soft white ghosts. She laid him near the fire, her hands trembling as she checked his wound. It wasn't deep, bloody, painful, frightening, yes, but not fatal. Still, her voice shook as she whispered, "Stay awake, please stay awake." Jacob reached up, brushing a tear from her cheek with the back of his knuckles. His hands were rough, calloused, but his touch was tender. "Clara, I'm fine." "You're bleeding." "I've bled worse." His eyes softened. "Not in front of people I needed to live for." She swallowed hard. "You can't keep throwing yourself in front of danger." "If danger ever points itself at you or Emma again," Jacob said, his voice low and certain, "I won't hesitate, not even for a heartbeat." Clara sat beside him, Emma tucked against her chest, the baby's soft hiccups fading into tiny sighs. The fire crackled warmly, painting the cabin walls in amber light. Outside, the storm picked up, brushing the windows with icy wind. Inside, everything felt still, safe, wrapped in the kind of quiet that only comes after surviving something that tried to break you. Jacob shifted, wincing, and Clara steadied him immediately. "You should lie back." He nodded, letting her ease him onto a small pile of quilts. For a moment, he simply looked at her, really looked like he was memorizing every detail. "You're shaking." "I thought I lost you," she whispered. He reached for her hand. "You won't lose me, not if I still have breath." Clara lowered herself onto the floor beside him, their shoulders touching. Emma slept between them, her tiny hand curled around Jacob's finger. He let out a soft, broken breath. "She's got your strength," Clara said. "She's got your heart," Jacob replied. "That's what will save her in this world." Silence wrapped around them for a long moment. Not empty silence, but full, warm, alive. The storm roared outside. The fire glowed inside. And for the first time since arriving at this cabin, Clara didn't feel like a visitor. She didn't feel borrowed, temporary, tolerated. She felt rooted, needed. Jacob's voice broke the quiet. "Clara?" "Yes?" His fingers brushed hers. "This place doesn't feel so empty anymore." Clara swallowed, emotion tightening her chest. "It doesn't feel so frightening anymore." Jacob turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze. "You're safe here." Her breath caught. No one had ever said those words to her, not with truth behind them. "And Clara, this is your home now." He paused, voice barely more than a whisper. "If you'll have it." The fire popped softly. Emma stirred and settled again. Clara wiped a tear from her cheek, laughing through her trembling breath. "I want it," she whispered, "more than anything." Jacob closed his eyes in relief. his hand finding hers again. Outside, the world remained cold and hard and unforgiving. But inside this cabin, a man, a woman the world had cast aside, and a baby who belonged to both of them created a small, fierce light, a beginning, fragile, hopeful. And as the storm howled across the mountains, Clara couldn't help but wonder, quietly, secretly, was this love strong enough to withstand whatever waited beyond the tree line? Stories like this one always remind me how fragile and powerful love can be. It grows in the unlikeliest places, in old cabins, in wounded hearts, in people the world overlooks. If you're still listening, I hope it touched something in you too. Every time I read your comments, I'm reminded that stories connect us across distances, across languages, across lives. Tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And if you still believe that love can heal, protect, and rebuild even the most broken souls, then don't go far. The next story will be waiting for you.